Day 4 of the August 97 10-day retreat in Springwater. It's such a somber day, isn't it? Dark, cloudy, cool, moist and windy. Amazing, this whole affair of weather. We call it weather, but what is it really? But wind and rain and clouds parting, blue sky and sunshine, hot or cool, thunderstorms, and then snow and ice, frost, and melting, warming, oozing water on the driveway. That image just came up. In the early spring when the snow melts, the driveway sparkles and gullies form, and we have to repair it. So, what is weather but this constant change of condition and phenomena and human feelings and moods that go with it, like and dislike, heaviness or lightness? And yet there's no such entity as the weather. Is there such an entity as me? I, myself, ego, mine? Or is it likewise just an ever-changing series of moods, ideas, memories, desires, fears, projections, goals, strivings, which somehow this brain and organism, including the heart, has managed to call I, me, Toni or XYZ. To come upon what this really is. Are we interested? Is that maybe the essence of work in a retreat? Beyond the peace and quiet that one may be seeking, to get some insight, some clarity about this me, without any need or requirements to condemn it, to want to overcome it, conquer it. It is such a powerful, it's not just a concept, such a powerful sense, feeling, conviction, that until one starts to read some spiritual books or does some training of this sort, most human beings, there are exceptions, most human beings take it totally for granted that I am me. Me is this body, mine, separate from others. And the language in which we converse with each other, which has been directed at us since we were tiny little organisms, implies that me and I and you all the time, we talk like that. It's my fear. I have to do something about this. Let's just watch it, how we're talking about ourselves and each other in such a convincing and ever-reinforcing way, reinforcing the sense of I, me, mine as separate from others, isolated, insulated. And one may ask, well, how is one to come upon it? If it's so much taken for granted, so natural feeling, how to sort of loosen it up so it becomes visible, transparent. It's not that difficult. If we get out of the conceptual, abstract ideas about the me, the ego, into reality, our constant reactions, which imply this me, this I, that gets hurt, insulted or flattered, slighted, disregarded, aggrandized, defending oneself, protecting oneself. Mind you, when we're protecting ourselves in our daily interrelationships, we're not protecting ourselves from physical injury, from flying stones, bomb attacks. It's from words, gestures, coloration of voice and language in which we're addressed, which hits us and smarts, hurts us or flatters us. I'm just going on with this language of flattering us. It's so difficult. It needs special attention to really put it as it is, that there's hurt, that there's a feeling of flattery, feeling happy energies or painful energies throughout the body, in the heart, warmth or coldness. At the drop of a word or a thought, a word addressed to one, spoken about one, or thinking about oneself, recollecting what happened yesterday or a year ago, when I felt so good, so bad, so happy, so pained. Right now, words are being spoken. And one may follow them intellectually. And if they are fairly logically put together, then it can make sense intellectually. Maybe the first thing that is necessary to understand intellectually what goes on about oneself. But that's not the whole thing. The words that are spoken point to something that can be observed by each one of us as the talk proceeds and as we go along from moment to moment. Outside of retreat, outside of talk, to watch directly the hurt happening. What happens? What is being hurt when defenses arise, or justifications, protection or withdrawal? What is it that is being protected? What is it that one thinks got hurt? And it's not just thinking one gets hurt, because words, gestures, have a an immediate impact upon this whole organism. This is the wonder of existing. One word and the body aroused in pleasure or pain, fright or longing. Can one watch it for oneself and see the almost instantaneousness of it? A word and the reaction in another word and defensiveness or justification or wanting more of it. Almost without a gap in there, seemingly without a gap. Certainly, one cannot find an I doing all of that. The thought happens and the hurt occurs. Who did it? To whom is it happening? Other than a palpitating heart, painful solar plexus, discomfort in the intestines, tensing muscles, blood rushing around. It's anger, it rushes into the head. Who's doing that? To whom is it happening? And yet it is marvelously observable. And by observing, I think we said in the beginning, to be light with the words. For somebody it may not be so much observing, and then not to be thrown by something that doesn't seem to hit the condition, maybe a listening or feeling, attending to word-arousing reaction, sensing it throughout the body. Or, as we've recently said, it's all becoming transparent that this is going on successively from moment to moment. But language, as we talk to ourselves, about ourselves, uses the I case. I got hurt. I cannot let that happen again. I want more of their company, seeking out in imagination the company in which one feels good, accepted, loved, flattered. It's all going on its own. No one is doing it. And it is happening to a human being, with or without some presence of awareness, which, as that happens, as awareness dawns and shines light on all the happenings, inside and out, who can say it is mine, is my awareness? Where is the owner? Where is the owner of the wind in the leaves rustling? The listening brings it up, makes it clear. But whose listening is it? We say, I'm listening, or I can't listen, and befuddle the mind with the language that one has learned and that is in the air, that is common property. And each one of us can work on this. You may be protesting right now and say, but I am hearing it. Who else would be? It's me. It's not you hearing it. But there can also be the expression of this. Just listening and leaves and trees moving and cool air entering, cooling the skin. It's not happening to anyone. It's just there. It's present with everyone else. isn't the listening here right now with everyone? Is it yours or mine? Depending on how strong the language influence still is, there may be doubts arising. Because we've always thought that way and talked that way and been told that way. Do I sound as though I'm trying to convince someone of something? The passion that flows to communicate something, to convey something, may be mistakenly interpreted for a desire on my part to convince or persuade. But that's not what's going on. I need to say it every once in a while. It is displaying what is happening for all of us, open for inspection by each one of us. Not to be bought, not to be believed in, but be tested out, explored on one's own. Right here and as we go, from moment to moment. What is it that just got hurt? What is it that gets hurt? Or flattered? It's the same thing, two sides of the same coin. The one we want to get away from, the other one we want to have more of. The organism is structured and programmed that way, of wanting more of the pleasant, which is also called addiction, and shunning or resisting or repressing the unpleasant. So what is it that gets hurt or flattered? Are we interested or just waiting for more words to be heard? Or will we look for ourselves? Or because of this stuff being brought up time and time again, no retreat goes by without our asking at one point or other, what is it that gets hurt? And defended, protected, justified, rationalized. What is it? Are we interested in hurt as well as flattery? Then we won't just wait for the next words, but look right now or any time it comes up again. Why do I get hurt? What is it that gets hurt? Because we experience great discomfort over it. And if the discomfort is not lit up with awareness and understanding, it carries on in quite murky ways in our relationship with each other. Like a pebble dropped into the water and the waves move and move to the edge. The grasses are moved and the grasses move the wind and the sky. What is this me that feels it gets hurt? Is it knowing what I am, a picture of myself, knowing that picture very well, although it is multitudes of pictures, some added all the time, some dropped, imagery connected together, what I am, how I look, what my capacities are, my education, my family, my name, my background, and what we call identification with that, which means what? Saying I'm identified with my name. What does it mean? My family. as a child and young woman, I was very identified with my name, not because it was my name, my last name, but because it was my father's last name. And he was famous, so I was told. And I like to tell others about this father of mine, to garner respect, pleasurable feelings at telling it, at admiration in other people's eyes, which may not even have been there, but they were projected. Some people may have felt, what a bore. In our apartment in Germany, there was a little polished brass sign on the outside of our apartment door with my father's name on it. All his titles, professor, doctor. And actually the doctor was underneath, he was not a doctor, but all of these titles had to be exposed all the time. It was part of living in Germany, in academia. And the doctor was underneath the name, and it said Dr. Phil, P-H-I-L. It's like PhD. But I thought he was a philosopher, and I thought this was the most exciting concept, that my father was a philosopher. Which I told my friends, this is what identification is. Needing to talk, needing to garner good feelings, admiration from others. If not for something one did oneself, then for something one's father did or husband. Likewise, I was very identified with my half-Jewish descent, or whatever you call that. Not so much in Germany, but later on, telling people and finding instant attention, instant sympathy, interest, and wanting more of that, making the story of one's life interesting to others and to oneself because of the energies involved, the feelings, the sensations provided by the story, the words, the looks, the gestures. That's what identification means. And when that is disturbed by someone not buying into it or contesting it or putting it down, then there is physical discomfort, anger, fear, whatever. You find it yourself. You have found it, most of us. Live with this quite awarely if we go to retreats like this. So, what are we all identified with? It's infinite almost. Always a new identification with something. Our possessions, what we own, materially, mentally, spiritually. Identification with that. What one is. One's profession, one's job. It's identification. Meaning, I am that and I need to be respected for it. Get extra input for it. For the idea that this is what I am. The concept. Words, letters. And if that is not respected as expected, if it is slighted, is then a hurt via the hurt image? Is that what gets hurt? The image? The identification that has built up over the years? Yeah. And we have said and watched how quickly one thought excites the whole body. After starting this whole spiritual quest, going to Zen center and doing a lot of meditation practice, in the course of time, can't assign special causes to it. I realized that I was talking less and less about my father and my half-Jewish background. To the point now when somebody brings it up, sometimes an interviewer will ask and want to hear a lot about it. It feels like a botheration. Why dig this stuff up? I want to talk about the wind and the birds. And do you hear it too, Miss Interviewer? Or just digging for identities. And people still at times battle me on this issue that I have actually dropped because I don't like the battle over it, that I don't see myself as a teacher. Here I'm bringing it up again. Somebody brought it up this morning, the projection and this conventional stuff coming into a room and sort of almost the offering itself of the imagery of teacher and student, like clothes one puts on to wear, roles one plays in those clothes. I haven't been too successful, particularly with some people, to convince them that this image does not exist for me. Now you have to take it on trust, or you don't have to trust it. But it's true for me, because it's in the way. Relating without image is the freest thing in this universe. And when something does hurt, then to look what got hurt, and sure enough, there was some kind of an image, how I want to be seen by others. As a nice person, friendly, kindly, compassionate. Somebody isn't seeing me this way, so it hurts. How ridiculous. And yet, we smart under those things all the time, don't we? So how quickly can we not put a Band-Aid on, but look at it. Shine the light on this hurt and find out what it is. And find out whether there's anything but an image involved, unless the skin was really punctured. Usually it's just the image that is being punctured. And the more often we see it and the quicker we detect it, the quicker we can be free of that burden of suffering. Because, as I said earlier, if it is not detected, not illuminated, it keeps on working in murky ways, paying others back, hurting them back. It's an amazing principle programmed into the human body-mind. I don't know whether it's programmed into the heart. Probably not. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Not just that we have to read this in the Bible and say, well, it's a good idea, let's do that. It's there. It's an instant reflex, sometimes very hidden, very masqueraded, and yet it's there, needing revenge, satisfaction for hurt done to me or to mine. Identification, of course, with a family, with a group one belongs to, the country one calls one's own, including flags and national anthems. Defending that when it's offended, causing infinite harm to humanity, to ourselves, by this eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. And yet, when one observes oneself very honestly, very subtly, it's so present, the potential for it. And yet it doesn't have to take place, because attention will irradiate it. And it is seen for so much waste and damage and unnecessary functioning. So what am I? And you, what are we? Without images. It's unimaginable, isn't it? And yet the wind is blowing, the trees are moving, breath is flowing. Without the aid of imagery. Imagery is grafted on top. And in that grafted world, we spend a good part of our lives. And yet, every once in a while, whether one does spiritual work or not, meditating or not, this real world will shine through. Sound through. What is it when we don't call it wind and coolness and rain? When we don't know it. When we don't know the listener, and yet there's listening, awareing. Without knowing. Does a question like, what am I without imagery, does that evoke the injunction, the command, be without images, and then you'll know? And that's not what is meant at all. It happens on its own. I related in the past, I haven't done it recently, visiting my parents in Switzerland with a family. Always had a very difficult relationship with my mother. I was very afraid of her. She was a very passionate woman. A lot of anger. But as I discovered, also a lot of love. And that discovery took place when once, on entering the dining room, she was standing in front of her, I don't know what you call this in this country, a buffet. It's a place where you keep your dishes, and then there's some glass part where she had all her little knickknacks shining through that glass. And she was standing in front of it, and for no reason or cause whatsoever, I saw her without any image. But not only the image of her had dropped, but there was also no image of what I thought she saw me as. That's also gone. There's nothing left except pure love for this woman whom I had never consciously loved. Such beauty I saw in her. And our relationship changed, obviously. I felt a companionship with her. And so forth. So, it happened. Which does not dispense one from watching it as it arises. Because this happening once does not mean there's never going to be any more image making. Image making is deeply programmed into this body-mind. But to discover it freshly, this moment, and not fall for it. To see image as image and wonder, what's the real thing? What's the real you? What's the real me? we will end here for today.